Hello and welcome back to Wickedly Bookish, where we talk about all things book related. I'm your host, Wickedly, that's with two Y's, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I have drawn out my characters from the book that I'm writing, and made a little short with them, and I wanted to talk about writing POC characters while you guys watch me draw. So go ahead and grab out your sketchbooks if you're an artist. You can just put this on in the background, or you can watch me do my drawings. But today we're going to talk about POC characters. So I've talked about this a little bit in my Stephen King video, where I said that Stephen King doesn't know how to write women, but that I have a problem with people who say that an author just can't write women. And I have a similar problem with writing queer characters and writing POC characters, where it feels a lot like weaponized incompetence to say that you just don't know how to write these kinds of characters. Because as a white author, like, I include POC characters all the time, and it's really not that hard. Like, they're just people. I don't I don't see a problem with it. And I have done a little bit of research into this because I always want to make sure to be as sensitive as I can be with these sorts of subjects that I don't really know a whole lot about. And I've seen people say that if you're going to write a book, we want representation. Like, as a queer person, I want queer representation. If a character is queer, then literally the only thing that needs to change from a straight character or a cis character is their identity. And I said this about women in the Stephen King video, and I think it's true for all of these things, that as long as you are not writing um, about the experience of being queer, about being a woman, about being a person of color, as long as you're not trying to take the voice from these minorities and you're just writing them as any character, that's fine. That's how you do it. And people have a problem with this, and I think that it tells more about what they actually think than what they say does, because if they don't include any of these characters because it like slips their mind or because they're not sure how to write them, I feel like they're just kind of saying that they're prejudiced. Like, if every single one of your characters is white, that's how you see the world. Like, you think white is the default and the normal. And I just have a problem with it because, as you can kind of see, these aren't colored, but all of these characters are people of color except the last one. So, two of them are Southeast Asian, kind of. It's a fantasy world, so it's not like super specific to any region. And then the first character is a black girl, and then the last character is a white man. And it's kind of easy to do this. I don't really understand the problem, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. They are just people, and people also say that they can't draw people of color, and I don't think that's a good excuse either, because you can kind of see I'm not super good at drawing people of color, but the effort and inclusion is what counts. And I do know that people do include people of color or queer people or stuff like that, but they include them as like tokens or like stereotypes. So I want to talk a little bit about stereotypes in media about people of color and stuff like that so that like you know how to avoid them. So, the first stereotype I see a lot in drawings is over exaggerating racial features. And I try not to do this. I do give racial features to my characters, but as you can see, like, my black character's lips are not super big because that's just a harmful stereotype that was used in like propaganda and stuff. Yes, some black people do have like bigger lips, but it's not every single one of them, and I don't think that's helpful to include in depictions. Like, just don't over exaggerate their features. And I think the same thing is true of when you're writing these characters. Like, don't over exaggerate their ethnic features just because you're trying to say that they are people of color. And I also have seen a lot of depictions of especially South Asian women, where when people write South Asian women, they always compare their scent to food, and that's not great. Also, comparing skin colors to food, not a fan of that. I do, like, if you're gonna do it, at least do it to the white characters too. Like, you can't just use these just descriptive words on one type of character because then you're singling out the character and othering it. So, yeah, that's kind of my opinion on that. People also forget the kind of expectations that are placed on characters of color based on their society. So, like in America, black people are kind of characterized as being more aggressive. So, if you're going to write a black character and you only have one black character, don't make them the most aggressive character. I feel like these things are kind of like common sense, but I see them a lot in popular media, and it's kind of gross to me, and I don't really understand where it comes from other than just like pure racism, because I am a prime example of how easy it is to do these things. Like, it's really not hard, and I'm not like trying to pat myself on the back. I'm trying to say this is the bare minimum. This is super easy. Why is this not the standard? Like, and I do think it has a lot to do with cultural biases and how our society treats people of different races. And I think it's important for authors, especially who are creating this kind of media that will affect people's perceptions of these groups, to avoid the stereotypes and take the time to understand like how their portrayal will affect the people of color or the queer people or any of the minorities that are seeing themselves in these books or trying to see themselves in these books. Rick Riordan is a great example of an author who does this really well. I love Rick Riordan, and he is so great at putting representation into all of his books. He has people of color, he has queer people, he writes really strong female characters, and he does it really easily. Like, it's not difficult. Again, I just have to emphasize it because I truly don't understand where people's head is at when they are drawing these characters as stereotypes or they are writing these characters as stereotypes. Like, just write people. If you don't think of women as just regular people, write the woman as a man and then just switch her gender. Like, I don't think it's that hard. But yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about some good and bad depictions of people of color in popular media. So obviously, I already talked a little bit about Rick Riordan. I especially love his character Hazel from the Percy Jackson series, or not the Percy Jackson series, but the Heroes of Olympus series. She is a black character and she's written really well. She is also from, I don't remember what time period, like she's a little bit older um, than she should be because of all of the events that happen in the book series. But I think she's a really good depiction of a black character because she's just a person who happens to be black. There's also a bunch of other different races. Nico is Italian. Um, Piper is half Native American. Um, yeah, and these characters are all depicted the same as the other characters. Like, I wouldn't expect Rick Riordan to write about like what it means to be a person of color because he's not and he doesn't really understand it. So I think it's great that he just includes these characters. And I also really so he also has a character named Sam in the Magnus Chase series, who is a person of color and also Muslim. And I think that's really cool. But I also want to talk a little bit about how the fandom has reacted to Annabeth's character, like Annabeth's actor in the new Percy Jackson series, because I think that it's a really gross reaction, honestly. I don't understand why people get so up in arms about characters switching race, because me personally, I only have a problem with a character switching races when their race is a central part of the story. So I saw a lot of people saying, like, oh, well, what if we race swapped Tiana from The Princess and the Frog? And that doesn't really track because it's not the same thing. Tiana's race is an integral part of her story because part of her story is about community and poverty and, working super hard in the time period that she was working. And the story is intrinsically affected by her race. Annabeth being white had literally nothing to do with the story. It literally does not matter in any way, shape, or form. Same thing with Ariel. Ariel is half fish. Like, it doesn't matter what race she is because it wasn't important to the story in the first place. The only character that I've ever had a problem with the race switching was in One of Us is Lying when they swapped Connor's race, and that's because I thought that his race was very important to his story because he was supposed to be the stereotypical blonde-haired, blue-eyed, you know, southern gentleman, and part of his story was escaping that box that he was put in. And that's when I have a problem with the race swapping, is when a character's race is integral to the story. Annabeth's wasn't, Ariel's wasn't. These kinds of things really don't matter in the long run. And I don't see why people have such a problem with people of color getting to see themselves on TV. Like, it's not a problem, it's not a big deal, and making it a big deal just kind of signifies to me that you just actually don't like people of color. So, yeah, we've talked a little bit about some good representation of people of color. Let's talk a little bit about some bad representation. And I've done videos in depth on J.K. Rowling and Stephen King already, so I'm just going to briefly touch on them here. But my least favorite is probably J.K. Rowling's depiction of Cho Chang, because that's not a name, first of all, it is a stereotype. She's kind of a fetishized character because her only purpose in the story is to be a temporary love interest for the main character, and I just don't understand why. Like, she's a very stereotypical Asian girl. Like, she's a Ravenclaw because that's a stereotype about Asian women. And, like, it's just kind of gross because her entire personality is just one big stereotype. And it's never addressed, it's never brought up. And I really have a problem with it because that's, like, the only POC representation that she has in her books. And I also don't really like how she does this like pandering thing where she was like, "Oh no, 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 actually Hermione was always black." Because that's not how she was depicted, that's not how she was portrayed, and people of color didn't get to see themselves in her when they were reading the Harry Potter book because that's not what she was said to be. So just kind of retconning it and going back is like the worst way to do it because you're not actually providing that representation that people are asking for. And then I think that the Stephen King one is pretty obvious. Like, he is not good at writing people of color. I specifically hate his depiction of the Native American character in Firestarter because he is a huge stereotype. He's got a stereotypical name. He's got all the traits of like, ooh, the Native American hunter. Like, he can read the ground super well, even though he was like in a modern setting where that wouldn't really be the case. And then he's also depicted as being in love with the little girl main character. And that's just really gross because it paints men of color in a really predatory light. Even if that wasn't the intention, with the way that society paints men of color as already being predatory, adding to that stereotype is not helpful. So it does help to be aware of these stereotypes when you're making people of color into characters, because you want to avoid these stereotypes. Because even if it is an accident, it just builds on top of the existing stereotype, and it makes it, it solidifies it in people's minds, and that's not really okay. And he also treats people of color just in general really badly in his stories. Like, he uses slurs all the time. Water break. And the usage of slurs is not really necessary. And I really went into more depth into this in my other videos. But I just wanted to bring them up here because I really do think that people of color in fiction is a really sore subject for some people. And I don't really understand why, again, other than literally just racism. Like, there's no other explanation for it because it's not rooted in common sense or actual knowledge. It's just rooted in the knowledge of these stereotypes that aren't true. You can't categorize an entire people based on the actions of a few. It's like, it drives me crazy when white men will do the thing where they're like stereotyping people of color, stereotyping women, and all this. And then they're like, well, it's not all men. That's the point. Not stereotypes don't apply to everyone in the group that is being stereotyped. That's the definition of a stereotype. And it really just does show people's prejudices when they bring things up like that. And I just don't really like it. It really bothers me, and it kind of takes me out of whatever book I'm reading if it has like these stereotypical portrayals of POC color characters, or if it doesn't have any POC characters. Like, why? In my world, I add people of color based on the environment. Like, that's how people of color evolved to be different from white people in the first place, is we were formed in different environments. So putting people, different races, in different environments makes so much more sense than only having white people everywhere. um but yeah, especially if you're writing um like realistic fiction, people of color are everywhere in this world. Like, you can't exclude them. I mean, obviously you can because people do it all the time, but excluding them just makes a story less realistic in the first place. Like, people of color are literally everywhere. I live in the most conservative small town, and I know at least 3 people of color. Like, there's a lot of people of color in this town. Like, I personally know at least 3, and I've seen more. Like, they might not be as prominent as white people, but people of color are everywhere, and they should be everywhere. Like, they're just people. It drives me really insane. I needed to rant about it a little bit because it is not hard. It really is so easy to just be inclusive when you're writing. Like, and this applies to queer people too. Like, if you have a side character, maybe mention that they have, like, this woman has a girlfriend instead of a boyfriend. And, like, don't do it with just one character. Like, that's kind of tokenizing them and being like, oh, well, I'm inclusive. Like, just add variety to your stories. It makes it really boring to read the same story about a straight white woman or a straight white man over and over again. Especially in like the romantasy genre where every single protagonist is just a white woman. Like, it drives me insane. I hate reading those stories because they're all literally the same person. Add variety to your stories, people. Add people of color, add queer people, add different genders of people, add non binary people. My favorite author is a Mormon white man. And in his book series, that is my favorite book series ever, he has 2 trans characters, 2 non binary characters, People of different races, there's two gay characters, or well, technically four, because it's two separate relationships. There's women doing, perceived as men things. Like, it is so easy. And if this man who was raised Mormon in the middle of Utah can write these things, like, why aren't you? Okay? Why aren't you? What is your excuse for this? You can't write them? That's not really an excuse. Like, that's not a real thing. They are just people. They are just people. Queer people, people of color, women, we're all just people. So if you don't think you can write a person of color, or you don't think you can write a queer person, or you don't think you can write a woman, let me tell you, you're wrong. If you can write a person, you can write all of these people. They are literally, I mean, there's differences, but if that is not the point of the story, there don't need to be. You can just write them as people with different personalities because that's all they are. So, anyways, I just wanted to rant about that for a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing me talk about this because it is something that I'm really passionate about. And I hope you enjoyed my drawing. I'm not the best artist ever, but I have been told that I'm pretty good, so I hope it's enjoyable to watch me struggle through my drawings. Um, let me know the kind of content you want to see in the future. Let me know if you want to hear more rants. Let me know if you want to see more drawing, or if you prefer the video format of me just sitting there. I do want to apologize for my screen being turned. I don't really know how to use my video editing software, and that was the only way I could figure out to make it work. So I hope it wasn't too much of a hassle, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.